Transformers, a cultural phenomenon that I and you have probably grown up with. Your parents have most likely grown up with it, and, well, it's just been around for a long time. But the only reason it's still around today is because of this director. You may have heard of him. His name is Michael Bay. And, well, without him, Transformers would probably be a dead thing that, well, doesn't exist anymore. But because of the 2007 film Transformers, the franchise is still alive and running well today. There's been multiple cartoons of it, there's been spin-offs, there've been the huge live-action blockbuster films. Definitely can't forget about the amazing video games that have come out over the years. A lot of awesome stuff. Oh, and most importantly, I forgot about this, toys. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how I got into the franchise, where I found out about it, and what made me love the franchise so much. So let's go back to 2006. Me and my mom, and I think my brother at the time, we went to go see Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest, the second film in the series. And during the previews, there were some trailers, and I think it was like TMNT, which was the animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, and some other trailers I can't quite remember, but there's one I remember very vividly, which was a teaser trailer for Transformers. I had no idea what Transformers was. I didn't know any of the characters. I knew absolutely nothing about Transformers. And this teaser trailer was so incredibly cool. Like, it still gives me the chills today, and it's just awesome. It starts out, you see the DreamWorks and Paramount logos, and you hear this voice going 7, 6, 5, and it's a rocket launch, and it has this text: in 2003 the Beagle 2 Mars rover was launched. And then you see this footage of a Mars rover launching to Mars. You see some text talking about it crashed, and then you see some footage from the rover's point of view. It's looking around, there's nothing to be seen except just wasteland. It rolls off this platform, and then out of nowhere you see this big shadow of a robot, what appears to be a robot, and then it just crushes the camera. And I can remember that and just being really intrigued for some reason, just because of how ominous it was. You see this shot of Earth, and then this big, bold silver text comes out of nowhere, and it transforms into existence, and it says Transformers. And then it starts shifting some more, and then it says the date of when the film was going to come out. And I also remember this very vividly. It transforms into this Autobot logo. And I remember my mom leaning over and whispering to me, "Ooh, Transformers, I know you'd love that." Because it was a big thing whenever her and, our parents today were kids. So I still had no idea what it was, but I was definitely intrigued, and I wanted to see that movie when it came out. So we got home from the movie, and I remember going up onto the internet back in the early days of the internet when it was getting really big, and I googled Transformers because I was curious. Of course, there were advertisements and sites all about the film, and there was something else coming out called Transformers Animated. It was a cartoon which was slightly inspired by the original G1 cartoon, Generation 1, and it was coming out to Cartoon Network. Back in its golden days, I guess you could say. That's back whenever Teen Titans was a thing and Powerpuff Girls, the original Powerpuff Girls. But the show wouldn't come out for about another year, about the same time the first film was going to come out. So time had passed, and eventually Transformers came out into theaters. Unfortunately, we never went to go see it because we didn't really see movies that often, but I can remember seeing the toys at the store and really wanting to get them, just because the idea of these robots that could turn into different vehicles like cars and jets and tanks and stuff, it was just so cool. I can imagine that's how, people back in the 80s thought whenever they saw these toys. But fast forward to Christmas, and I remember unboxing this giant Optimus Prime, and it was so cool. I remember opening it up, and it was already packaged in its robot form, and I always needed help transforming it into its truck mode. My dad showed me one day and was like, "This is how you do it." And he did it, and eventually I learned on my own, and I was like, "Dad, look, I can transform my Optimus Prime, I got it." And I also remember going to the store and getting more of the toys. I got like Bumblebee, Barricade, I got Jazz, he was really cool. And I also remember going to what I think was a Toys R Us somewhere, and I got this Megatron figure, and it was so cool, and I was just so happy because I had a Megatron figure to go with my Optimus Prime. So I was definitely super happy about that. So a couple months later, I realized that the film was out on DVD, and I was so ecstatic. I remember buying it at the store and going home to watch it with my dad and my brother, and I was obsessed. Soon after, Transformers Animated came out, and I watched that, and that was a great show. I hold that show very near and dear to my heart for multiple reasons. Hell, I even have the complete series on DVD. It's just a great series. I'd definitely recommend it if you're a Transformers fan. And I got some of the toys from Transformers Animated, and it was just, it was awesome. It was my favorite thing. 2 years later, in 2009, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen came out, and I was so excited. I was like, oh yes, I'm ready to see Optimus Prime and the Autobots and Decepticons again, and just, see it. And I was so excited. I remember the video game coming out, and I remember brand new toys coming out. There was a new Optimus Prime and a new Megatron. They looked so awesome. Megatron turned into a tank this time around instead of a jet. I think a day before we went to go see Transformers 2, we needed to get tickets. So my dad was like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called IMAX? And I didn't know what it was, but when I heard that it was a giant screen with like really loud sounds, I was kind of intimidated. I liked the giant screen part, but part of me was like, oh, it's Transformers. That's gonna be loud. And my dad was like, nah, it's fine. It won't be too loud. You'll get over it. So we went to go see it. I was ecstatic. And man, this screen was gigantic, especially for someone my age. I was like 10 at the time. And well, needless to say, I enjoyed the film. I don't really enjoy it too much nowadays just because the story is really weird and all that stuff. But I had my hands covered around my ears pretty much throughout the whole film, except for the parts where they were just talking. And I remember coming out of that movie and my hands were completely numb, and it took around like 30 minutes for them to not be numb. Probably not healthy, but oh well. I still enjoyed the film, and I still kind of enjoy it today. I just don't like it as much. But yeah, I remember that, and I remember also for my birthday I got this Optimus Prime helmet. I still have, and I got a bunch of the toys and stuff. And again, I was obsessed with Transformers. Still am. I love it to death. But yeah, man, it was just. I loved it. Fast forward about a year later, we had moved into a new house because at the time, about around 2009 and 2008, we were living at my grandparents' house while we were looking for a house in Arkansas. This is whenever we had just moved back to Arkansas, by the way. Previously living in South Carolina. But it was 2010, late 2010, like December. I was in the band. It was my first year of band. And I was in middle school, and it was the night of a concert. I think it was like the Christmas concert, and the big thing on the internet blowing up was the Transformers 3 trailer, aka Transformers Dark of the Moon. Someone in the comments type how many times I've said Transformers in this video. But I remember watching it, and it was very similar to the trailer of the first film. It had this very ominous tone, and it showed the Apollo 11 mission. They were going to the moon, and they had landed, and they found the Ark, which is a big part of Transformers lore. In the original cartoon, that's where they crashed into this mountain on Earth. But there were these astronauts, and they had discovered the Ark. They were dusting off these giant robot faces, and there was this dust falling, and you could see their eyes and their face and stuff. They conned around a little more. You saw all these dead robot carcasses, and then the camera goes down into this giant hatch, and you see Sentinel Prime there, and then his eye activates, and then there's a bunch of animation of like transforming and stuff, and then it makes out this text that says Transformers Dark of the Moon. And good golly gosh, I was so excited. I went to the concert, and the rest of that night I just could not stop thinking about it. I was like, I've got to see this film. Fast forward to when that film came out. I had some of the toys from it, of course, and we went to go see it, and oh man, it was so awesome. Lots of plot twists. I won't say any here in case you haven't seen the films, but I loved the story of it. I loved the mix of history where they had the Apollo 11 mission and them discovering that Transformers were on the moon. And I remember walking out of that theater and going, welp, there it is, last one. No more Transformers films. Fast forward to 2013, and I went to the website transformersmovie.com just because I was curious to see if they still had anything about Dark of the Moon on there, but there wasn't anything about it on there. Instead, there was this logo. It was like the sand, and it has half a Decepticon logo and a 4 next to it, and I was just like, wait, what? Another Transformers film? So I patiently waited for a trailer or anything about the film to come out, and then it was the Super Bowl, February 2014. As pretty much everyone knows, during the Super Bowl, there's trailers galore, and more specifically, movie trailers. And well, I wasn't disappointed to see this 30-second ad for Transformers Age of Extinction. It had looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. You saw this giant ship with a little robot walking in front of it, and you see none other than Optimus Prime. He's getting up, and then there's this guy with a gun face a gun face. Like, well, what do you even say to that? You see Optimus get shot in the back, and he's like, oh, and then you see this big silver figure, which happens to be Galvatron, basically a reincarnated version of Megatron. And you see all this other footage of this guy. He has 2 SMGs, and he's on parachutes. And you see Mark Wahlberg and the Bumblebee flying up to a weird dragon dinosaur-looking thing, and then Grimlock. It's freaking Grimlock. Like, oh my god, it was so exciting. I didn't know how to process all of it. I was thinking about it for days and days. And oh man, I just could not wait for that film. Fast forward to its release, I had already bought a lot of the toys, much like I'm doing with Transformers 5. And oh my goodness, I remember going to see it and I was just ecstatic. In fact, there's even a picture I'll throw up right here. It's a picture of me next to this cardboard cutout at the theater of Optimus Prime riding Grimlock. And I went to go see the film, and it was pretty good. Looking back on it, it's definitely not as good as the original trilogy. My favorite is the third, but it was just something about it. I think the main reason is that the Dinobots weren't in it for long and they didn't talk, and it doesn't look like they'll be doing that in Transformers 5, but I mean, oh well, I can get over it. But yeah, I'm still excited for the 5th one. And the biggest thing about this film, the 5th one that's coming out the last night, is the fact that they're exploring the lore. I know a lot of people are gonna say like, oh, it's just another film with explosions and robots and crap, and you know, it's made to sell toys and stuff. You guys are giving into the corporate crap. But I mean, that's kind of the core thing about Transformers, is it's there to sell toys. That's what the cartoon was for. When they had the movie based on the cartoon, they killed off old characters and brought in new ones to sell more new toys. Why do you think that all the Transformers turn into a bunch of sports cars? It's because they want to advertise all these car companies to get that sweet moolah. The cartoons were there to sell toys, and the movies are there to sell cars and toys. Anyways, I love that this new film, they've finally hired new writers that know about the lore. They're going to explain the origins of the Transformers, and even in these new trailers that are coming out, they show footage of like Bumblebee in World War II fighting off Nazis and stuff, or old medieval knight Transformers, and of course Optimus Prime being evil is a big part of this new film, because at the end of the 4th, he goes up, I'm not gonna say too much, but he goes up to find these guys called the Creators. And in the first trailer for Transformers 5, you see him in space and he's like floating there, but they're continuing the story from the 4th. They're not just kind of like dissing the past film and saying, alright, here's a new story. They're continuing from 4, but at the same time exploring the lore. That rhymed. And I'm just excited. I'm sure this is a pretty long video, but that just shows how much I love this series. In fact, Transformers is a big reason why I'm into voice acting today, because I saw this fan series called Transformers Interstellar, and it wasn't like your typical stop-motion series, but it was live action. And the visuals were so stunning and great because it wasn't stop-motion. It was actual footage. You could see the trees flowing and the water shimmering. It was just awesome. I auditioned for that, and that was my first, like, I guess, role on the internet as a voice actor, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. I've met so many great people through Transformers Interstellar, and we've even made our own fan film called Rollout, which is, I think, around 70,000 views right now, which is absolutely insane. We did not think it would get that many views in such a short period of time, but man, it was a great project. I'm so proud of it. And I'd highly suggest you go check it out. Heck, in the series finale, we actually got a big guy. His name is David K. He's huge in the Transformers community. He voiced Megatron in Beast Wars Transformers and Optimus Prime in Transformers Animated. So he's voiced both Optimus and Megatron in his career, which is pretty awesome. But we contacted him and he voiced a pretty big role in the finale of the series, and I can officially say that I've worked with him, which is awesome. He's also big in voicing for anime, and he was also Clank in Ratchet & Clank. Well, still is Clank. But yeah, as you can tell, I really love Transformers. It's something that I hope to see thrive in the years to come. Some would beg to differ, some just absolutely despise the series just because Michael Bay. While sure, a lot of his films are explosions and, you know, eye candy, he is a very very passionate director. When he wants something done, he will get it done. I've seen behind the scenes videos of him yelling at people like, you know, come on, you're here for a reason. I have a vision and I'm gonna make it happen. Like, he's so dedicated to his work. And honestly, he is a master of his craft. So I say thank you, Michael Bay, for keeping this series alive. And while the 5th one might be his last, I think he's had one hell of a run. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up how I got into Transformers and my my love for it. It would be a huge honor someday to possibly voice a character in an upcoming cartoon or even a film, which is highly unlikely, but hey, you never know what could happen. Hell, even a video game. I'd be happy to voice a Transformer in a video game. That'd be awesome. Hasbro, if you're listening, give me a call. But yeah, I think I'm gonna cap it off there. If you're a fan of the series, do let me know in the comments about your relationship with the series and the franchise. You know, let me know. I'd love to hear. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like, and if you really, really liked it, be sure to push that subscribe button and push a little bell so you get notified every time I upload. Really means a lot if you made it this far, because this is probably a very long video. But until the next one, hasta la vista.